Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are trying a bit of a spicy Soul Sisters brew. Now, a week or two ago on the channel we played a challenge winning deck that had a lot of the cards in this deck in it. So it was like a Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride deck, and it was using the new cards like Starfield Shepherd, which can tutor for a 1-drop or it can tutor for a plains. So we're just using this to keep reassembling the Ocelot Pride combo until your opponent dies. That particular list was pretty good. We played it. There's a few things I didn't quite like in it, like things like Ancient Tomb and stuff. So we've got our own little brew here that we're trying out. In the past, I played Soul Sisters decks that use Voice of the Blessed as one of its payouts. So this is a white 2/2. Whenever you gain life, it gets bigger. When it gets to a certain size, it has flying and vigilance. And when it gets bigger, it becomes indestructible. So this just dominates combat and is a pretty powerful object to have around. So this is one of the payouts for gaining life. Another payout is obviously the Ocelot Pride, which then starts making cats and then makes more and more cats and gets out of control. There's also a new card, Haliya, Guided by Light. So at the end of your turn, if you've gained 3 life, then you get to draw a card. So we're gaining cards for gaining life as well now. So we'll be able to translate our life gain into a whole bunch of other things, whether that's cards, whether that's going wide, whether it's going tall. That's pretty sweet. This also has warp, so you can play it for 1, and then you can play it later as a 3/3. So there's a lot of options available on this one. It's pretty strong in my experience. We've got ourselves a couple of Mother of Runes, which we can also tutor for using the Starfield Shepherd, and this can protect our creatures. If we just want to protect the big Voice of the Blessed, we can do that. And then we also have Soul Warden and a Soul's Attendant. So these are just more life gain because we want more life gain than the other builds are running because we're trying to lean into it more. But why would we be wanting to lean into it more? Well, we are playing an infinite combo in our deck, which this new Starfield Shepherd really enables. So Heliod the Suncrowned is a 3/3/5/5 that's only a creature if you've got Devotion to White of 5, which we can get in our deck. That's not out of the realms of possibilities at all. But generally we're playing it for the other abilities on this. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. And then it has 1 and a white. Another target creature gains lifelink until end of turn. So, how is this an infinite combo? Well, Starfield Shepherd can tutor up our Walking Ballista. If we have a Walking Ballista with 2 counters on, we give it lifelink using Heliod, we ping our opponent for 1, we then gain life, which triggers Heliod, we put a counter on it. That is infinite pinging damage. That is a good way to try and win a game of Magic the Gathering, and we can tuck it in neatly with just a few cards because of the Starfield Shepherd, which is really cool. We could even run another copy of Heliod if we wanted to, but we're going to see how it runs in this configuration. We're rounding this out with just some good white spells. We've got Plows, we've got Solitude, and we've got 3 Skyclave Apparition. So we've got a lot more interaction than the one that won the challenge had. We've also still got the Wastelands as well. We do have these caverns, which might be a little bit greedy, but Cleric is going to be a good name for Mother of Runes, Soul Warden, Soul's Attendant, Voice of the Blessed. So it's going to do some reasonable work, and this is the only white card we have, so it's probably going to be Cleric most of the time. Sideboard-wise, we need to beat some combo decks, so we've got some Graveyard Hate in Faerie Macabres and Rest in Peace, Deafening Silence and Haliya to slow down some of these other combo decks. We've got Null Rod and 2 Stony Silence. I've gone for this split because the Stony Silence is white, so can pitch to Solitude, which is sometimes relevant. And we have another Mother of Runes for when we need to protect our creatures a bit more, so we can bring that in and just tweak our numbers a little bit. And that, lovely people, is the deck we're playing today. So it should be quite a fun one, so please remember to like and subscribe. If you'd like to see my videos early and support the channel, for just $1 a month, you can become a member, and that does really help me out. Okay, let's go gain some life. For free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping on high-end singles, classic products, and full sets, check out 3for1 Trading. Whether it's the legacy or pre-modern that I play on this channel, or even vintage and old school, they've got you covered. Find them through the link in the description of this video and use my code COW3 for free worldwide shipping on your first order over $500 or euros. This hand is kind of awkward. It doesn't have any of like our big payouts. We can try and do Haliya into the cat here. I think we might be better off mulliganing, although we do have the Mother of Runes, so we can be slower and protected doing it. All right, we'll give it a go. We do have the ability to maybe just go infinite with a Walking Ballista at some point, which is, let's face it, what everyone came here to see. Let's play out the Mother of Runes. To next turn, we can tutor for the Ocelot Pride, and turn after we can go Haliya into Ocelot Pride, start making a bunch of friends. Gemstone Mine. You don't normally see those in play unless your opponent's up to no good. So what flavour of no good is our opponent up to? Lion's Eye Diamond. That's certainly a little bit spooky. Another Lion's Eye Diamond. So this is exactly the sort of matchup that our deck is going to have a hard time into. Silence. Okay, we're going to be storming off here, I guess. So there's the Echo Vions. We're about to get a fresh grip. Now, our opponent might not be able to convert this into a win. This is a non-deterministic way. They can just draw 7 and not get anywhere. This hand will draw us a card next turn. Will it draw us a card next turn? So this comes in and gains us 1. This comes in, gains us 1. No, so we need another thing before we can do that. So we might be looking at doing a Wasteland turn and deploying one of our Soul Sisters. Now, we need to get another turn before that matters. We can F6 through our turn because our opponent has got the Silence running. I imagine we're probably going to see another Echo. Still a little bit shy of Lethal Storm, but they're not a million miles away. Sail into the west, so that's like a wheel effect. A lot of mana in the pool there. Okay, so we're getting a Burning Wish. Are they cracking in response? No. They've got Tendrils of Agony. They cast the Tendrils of Agony, and that should be lethal, right? Storm 9, and then it goes up to 10 from the Tendrils. And that does kill us for Xaxes. Sure. Like I said, this is not going to be a matchup that's going to be great for us, but we do have a boatload of cards in the sideboard. So we've got the Deafening Silence is obviously very good. The Null Rod is great. The Stony Silence does some work here. The Thalia is useful. The Rest in Pieces are also useful. There's a whole bunch of things that are good, and we have a whole bunch of things that are also bad here. So goodbye Swords to Plowshares, goodbye Solitude. Then we need to find 4 more spots here. Is this a game where we're going to be using these Skyclaves? We can take out some of the things they play out, like Wishclaw Talisman or Lion's Eye Diamond style cards. So that is a possibility. We don't need Mother of Runes though. Like, we can use this to protect a creature from like a bounce spell or something. But generally speaking, I don't think that's where we want to be. Maybe we'll trim the Skyclaves here. Alright, we'll try this out. We've got 12 sideboard cards we're bringing in. Okay. These cards are good, but we need to do something on turn 1, really, I think. Alright, Deafening Silence into some other bits and pieces. I will take this. And I guess we can throw back probably the Ballista here. Right, if we find the Heliod, we can just make our guys big and swing, and that's good enough. Gaining life is also not nothing in this matchup, because it means our opponent needs extra Storm. Now, sometimes they'll just Storm for like 1,000,000 and it won't matter. But sometimes, like that last game, they kind of had Xaxes. And if we'd have gained a little bit of life, we might have been able to force them into doing a non-deterministic line to maybe draw some more cards, and then the bottom can fall out that way. Okay. Step 1, Deafening Silence. I would really like to draw a Plains next turn. If we can go Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride, then I think we are odds on to win the game. Because having a piece that stops your opponent will only stop them for a certain amount of time, because they know we're boarding in stuff like this. We need to be able to pressure them at the same time. A Guide of Souls. Okay, I guess we get the Guide of Souls in this turn. And then I'll play this Wasteland. This means if our opponent goes for a Surveil Land at end step, we can punish it. Just to buy you. I will snap this Wasteland off straight away. Okay, so they're putting an Echo Vions into the graveyard. So they can give us a whole new hand. And then we get to be the first one to deploy cards from it. And given the amount of hate pieces in our deck, that's probably going to be quite good for us. Alright, we're just going for a spin here. Not massive on the hate pieces, but... Okay, so... I think we're actually better off playing a Rest in Peace and shutting down the graveyard. I think that is probably the way we want to go here. Because then they can't echo at all. Like, Faerie Macabre does nothing because they always have priority after the echo immediately enters the graveyard. Whereas Rest in Peace means it never enters the graveyard, so they can't draw 7 anymore. Now they can still do lines that don't use the graveyard. See what they end up off this gamble. I wonder if they've got somewhere destroying all enchantments, like Back to Nature, Tranquil Domain style stuff. Discarded a Mox Opal. I doubt that is what they tutored for. That's also the only spell they get to cast this turn. So we will Wasteland them, of course. And then we can go Guide of Souls first, because we want more energy. And then we can warp this in, which will gain us a bunch of life. And this can attack in and jump. And then we're actually serving for a decent amount of damage now. And we've got... So we put the warp on the bottom, always. It's a good habit to have. Okay, we have the Ocelot Pride, so we can go very, very wide next turn. Well, not immediately, but it's going to ramp up super quick. Their spell for turn, it's a Lotus Petal. Deafening Silence is quite the hate card, isn't it? So we play this one out. I guess we play this out first. This also teams up nicely with the Guide of Souls, where we can put more counters on it to get the abilities we want quicker. Play this out. Get some more energy. Gives the ability to attack. Let's grow the other one. So we've got 2 creatures attacking in nicely now. And we have a very lethal turn next turn. So if you watch how this pops off in terms of what our Voice of the Blessed does, it's pretty gross. We also have the City's Blessing now. Not that we're going to need it because we have a very lethal threat for next turn. Chain of Vaporing our Deafening Silence. I will not sacrifice a land. So this is our opponent's time to go off. But they can't use their graveyard for echo lines. And we played this turn. So we tapped for 2 mana this turn to play Voice of the Blessed, and it's a 10-10 by the end step. That's pretty good. Okay, we've got our Lion's Eye Diamond. You still need to get through this Rest in Peace if you're going to do the graveyard that way, but they can do other lines. They can still like play a bunch of mana, Burning Wish. I don't believe they're running any like Echo Eons into like Ad Nauseam, so this is probably their main engine. But they can... Okay, they're scooping up there. They can't do the Runehorn Hellkite because of the Rest in Peace. Okay, so can we do that on the draw? That becomes a more difficult proposition, but we have tools. We need to get through the first turn. A lot of these decks have now streamlined themselves to be turn 1 decks because of the oppression of things like Oops in the format and other combo decks. They need to just get out ahead of things early doors, so that they've kind of gone a bit faster, and now they're running Entomb as well, because if there's a busted card that you think should be banned, then your deck can play it. You should probably play it, is the logic. And it seems to be working quite well for those sorts of decks. Alright, we have our best hate card. We will keep this hand. We also have an infinite combo. Who's the combo deck now, opponents? They've gone to 5. So they can mulligan super low because they just have 2 cards that let them reset to 7. So they can dig pretty deep and make use of the London mulligan rule here. Well, our opponents kept on 5. Don't kill me, please. Well, that's certainly step 1 towards killing me, isn't it? Playing things out. So they could just be playing stuff to get ahead of a Deafening Silence. Alright, this gamble. Is this gambling for the Lion's Eye Diamond or the Echo? If it's gambling for the Lion's Eye Diamond, they had a chance to miss there. There is the Lion's Eye Diamond. There's a Chrome Mox. Storm is already picking up a bit here. There's 1 card left in their hand. I assume it's the Echo. Alright, let's hope that they don't draw into a useful one. We've drawn back into a Deafening Silence and another hate piece, so this hand is just as good as the previous one. We need to hope our opponent has to pass the turn here. Bloodstained Mire does not look like passing the turn. So if you want to help against these sorts of matchups, you can run Mindbreak Trap in your sideboard instead of like some number of the other hate pieces. That gives you a turn 1 or turn 0 piece of interaction. But it's not as flexible into the other combo decks of the format as some of these other cards that we have access to. So Mox Opal. But we have to hold priority and not just F6 through a turn, so our opponent at least considers Mindbreak Trap and whether or not they can play around it. Chrome Mox. If they imprint onto this, that's going to be 3 cards left in hand. Yep, the chain's underneath it. There's no mana in this Chrome Mox because it didn't imprint anything. It was just there for Metalcraft purposes and getting out of their hand before they're wheeled, so they wouldn't wheel into it. We're going to get Thoughtseized here. They could gamble using the Mox Opal as well. There's a lot of options for what our opponent could do here. So going down to 2 cards in hand now. I have a feeling that one of them has Beseech the Mirror, and they're going to bargain away this Chrome Mox. Okay, we're just going for another spin. Storm Counter is very lethal here. They just need to get the right pieces in play. Let's have a new hand. What does this one have? No Deafening Silence. So if our opponent passes the turn, our hand probably loses still. Not great, but I'm not expecting them to pass the turn. Well, they're going to need some fast mana to go, but their deck is obviously full of fast mana. Alright, we've got a Chrome Mox coming down. We don't have any way of ramping out a Stony Silence type effect if we draw one. The Runehorn Hellkite is underneath the Chrome Mox. That's probably a one-of in their deck, just as like an additional copy of the Echo, because some people, they might hold their counter magic after someone casts a gamble, or sorry, after someone casts an Entomb to hit the Echo and stop the Echo, rather than hit the Entomb. So you can Entomb for a Runehorn Hellkite, and then they don't get to do anything because it's an ability. So they can't counter that, and then you can wheel. Right, more artifacts. Our opponent's down to 3 cards in hand. I think we're going to see a gamble here. And then we're going to go for another little spin. But every time they spin and leave stuff in play, that's a better percentage chance of hitting the thing that just kills us. So I don't think they want to sacrifice this petal before they wheel this time. I think they want to make sure that that's not in the pile of things. Okay, they gambled for a Beseech. Or they had the Beseech in hand, they gambled for the Echo and missed. Yeah, so there's the Echo. I imagine that's probably what happened here. So now they're adding mana with their Lion's Eye Diamond as well. We're going to get a new hand. This one does have Deafening Silence, so if they miss this turn, we have play again. We obviously don't have a lot of agency. If they've just drawn a Tendrils, it's very lethal. They got a Beseech. They do have a beseech. They just go and get the tendrils here, they point at our face, and then we get stormed out. They're getting pretty close to the old Storm 20 as well. And there it goes. Alright, we lost to a combo deck, but we lost 2-1, so it's not too bad considering our deck is incredibly cold, that sort of thing. Let's go to round 2. Okay, Guide of Souls into Voice of the Blessed. It just starts ramping up. This seems fine. This one of Walking Ballista appears to be glued to our hands. Alright, so we have a Guide of Souls. Next turn we can get our little Voice of the Blessed going. Maybe. We might just be getting Prismatic Ending here. Or Lightning Bolted. It's a DRC. Are we playing this Voice of the Blessed into it? Or are we going to just get our Mother of Runes in? I quite like getting the Mother of Runes in, actually. And start winning combat then. We'll play the Soul's Attendant out. If it dies or gets dazed, I don't care. The hope here is that we can draw a land so we can play the Voice of the Blessed around a daze, or this can eat a daze. Either is fine. This also triggers off of our opponent's creatures. So if our opponent plays any creatures, we're going to gain a little bit of life. And that's not the worst. This sort of is a bit of a mirror breaker, I suppose, because if they're doing their Ocelot Pride thing, you end up with like 1,000,000 life as well. But that mirror is one of the worst to play in the format, in my opinion. I really hate playing the Ocelot Pride mirrors. Alright. We're going to gain a life here. It is optional. We don't have to gain life, but we're very much going to. Land? Not a land. We could just play this Ocelot Pride, though. That seems pretty strong here. I don't think our opponent beats that. And we're playing around daze. So this has to be a force, I think. So we can attack with the Guide of Souls and make it large. And we've got the Mother of Runes to protect everything here. So our opponent's just not going to be able to keep up with our life gain here and all this nonsense that we're putting down as well. I think we can gain life quicker than our opponent can delete it from us. Alright, they've had enough. Yeah, Ocelot Pride, Guide of Souls, still busted. Okay, so our opponent is like a creature deck that might be removing some of our things. So cards that have text in this matchup is basically these 4 things. But I think our deck is just quite well built to handle what our opponent's bringing to the table. I guess the Skyclave is kind of the most mediocre of things because they're not going to have permanents we want to blow up. Actually, that's not true. They've got the Corey Steelcutters now, haven't they? Maybe we can trim a Soul Warden for a Mother. I don't mind these Thaliyas, but what are we taking out for them? Like, this is huge. I think we need this to blow up some of our opponent's stuff. We could like trim on the Heliod and the... Like, we could just get rid of the infinite combo and just say we don't need it. We can just value our opponent out. Let's try that, actually. Let's see if we can just value our opponent out with things like Thalia and stuff. Because these Delver decks tend not to run sweepers like they used to. Like, back in the day, there's always, like, Rough and Tumble or the 1-mana End the Festivities, I think it is. Just ways of killing little creatures. But now they run Tamiyo and they run a bunch of their own little creatures in the monk tokens off of the Corey Steelcutter. Like, the Tamiyo can handle little creatures by just going, okay, we're just going to -1 to the power of them, we don't care about them, and then they don't want to sweep to take out their own stuff. This hand is very slow. I think we can get something with some 1-drops in. I tell a lie, we can't get things with 1-drops in. Okay, alright, they're not doing anything on turn 1, that's quite exciting. So they're ready for a 1-drop to bolt, I guess. That's what this hand says to me. Okay, we got a slow one here, but we have a removal spell and we have the ability to tutor for something interesting. So we can warp this in next turn if we want. It's going to be a little bit tricky trying to play around our opponent's dazes here. We could just go and get a plains so we can have enough mana to deploy the powerful cards we have. Ideally, we want a way of rattling through 2 additional life gain once we get the Haliya, so we can warp this in and turn it into a card, and then we can play the backside of it later rather than waiting for it to be a 3-drop. So this is going to be Cutter into presumably Bauble of some variety. No, just the Cutter. Alright, our opponent's got probably quite a reactive hand there. A Guide of Souls. Okay, I will deploy... Actually, I think we're going to warp this in. I'm not actually expecting this to resolve. But it might do. We can go and get a plains. Because this creature can grow out of the range of our opponent's stuff very easily. Alright, so there is the daze. It was going to get a land to help us play around daze anyway, so it's absorbed a daze and taken more mana off our opponent for the next turn, so it's going to be harder for them to double spell. There's a Channeler. No follow-up spell. Good news for us. Wouldn't mind a 1-drop here. I'll also take a plains. An Ocelot Pride. That is a 1-drop, isn't it? Alright, let's get the Guide of Souls in. Let's get the Ocelot Pride in. Which one are you more scared of? I think the Ocelot Pride is scarier, but it does depend on the context of their hand. If they've got another daze, that's obviously annoying, because they can daze and then probably bolt this and then activate the Quarry Steelcutter, which feels like what they might have been building up to, because they had that first turn where they clearly held open a Lightning Bolt. Okay. Are they going to let us go to the end step, or are they going to kill the Ocelot Pride first? They're going to bolt our kitty cat. But this is a spell they're playing that's not being made into a monk. If they wait till their turn, maybe they get to do two things, but then obviously we end up making a guy. And that's annoying for them. So if we draw a land, we can play the Skyclave and just take out the Quarry Steelcutter, which is the scariest thing our opponent's got going on. And then we can maybe go like Haliya into Voice of the Blessed, which will then make this pretty substantive in size. Alternatively, we can go Voice of the Blessed into Haliya that way. And then Haliya will grow the Voice of the Blessed. And then we'll have a 4/4. Alright, so they got two Dragon's Rage Channelers coming down now. They finally got their Quarry Steelcutter doing something, because they brainstormed first. Right. So now they're getting some prowess here. But they've got one card in hand. Obviously they're about to draw another one, because I suspect they're cracking this bauble. Making the Dragon's Rage Channelers have flying is pretty good here. So we could board in Rest in Peace in a matchup like this. I don't think it's necessary, but maybe we could. Like if you get a Rest in Peace and your opponent's just on a Quarry Steelcutter draw, you feel terrible. You need your cards to actually do something. Okay. I don't think I'm that worried about the Quarry Steelcutter anymore, because double spelling becomes more difficult for our opponent. Okay, so we play this out, then we play this out, then we get to draw a card. That seems reasonable. So let's warp this in. But because we're gaining life the whole time, we are just giving ourselves an extra window of additional draws. Play the Mother. So this is going to give us enough life to draw a card at the end step. It's also going to give us a Guide of Souls that can jump. Now, if they have the Lightning Bolt, they can always kill this anyway. They do have the Lightning Bolts. That is annoying. I don't know if they drew that off the bauble or they just had that up the whole time. But it's not exactly unlikely to be a thing they have. And at least they're getting prowess triggers on our turn and not their turn when they turn into damage to our face. Right, we did burn some energy. Put the warp on the bottom. We get to draw a card here. It's a Solitude. It's a good one. I don't think we need to do it now. We can do it when the Heliya's in play and it gains us an additional life. Also, the fact they burned a Lightning Bolt on the Guide of Souls means that this Mother of Runes is quite likely to make it round the table, which becomes awkward for the rest of the removal spells they have. Alright, they've got a bauble, so maybe they are going to be able to double spell here. We don't really want to see a Murktide Regent. Like, we have an answer for it, but they've already got a lot of threats. So we kind of need them to cut that out, but the Voice of the Blessed will be bigger than anything they're doing once we get this up and running. And the Mother of Runes will protect it from Brazen Borrow, which will be the only thing that can tangle with it. We are taking 9 here. So I'm going to draw off the bauble in our upkeep. So this is 1 life, 2 life, 3 life. So we will draw a card at the end of this turn. So I'll warp this in. We'll go for the kitty cat. And then we will pitch cast this. I think we get rid of... It's kind of tough here. Like, this is a card we can actually cast. The Voice of the Blessed will just overrun what our opponent's doing. Alright, we're going to pitch cast a Skyclave. We'll take out one of these Dragon's Rage Channelers. Then we go to the end step. And we get a card. It's another Solitude. That's not nothing. Okay. And we gain 4 life that turn, right? Which is pretty good going. So always put the Heliya on the bottom, so when you make your cats, then you end up getting life from them as well. It just all helps. Okay, you can equip it to that guy. I don't think we have to Solitude this. I think we can just take the 4 this turn. Because we have a bunch of good options depending on what we draw here. A Swords 2 Plowshares. I would describe that as a good option. They have a monk here. If they cast any spell, then the monk will be a 2/2. I think we still send this in because we want to gain some life this turn. Alright, we gain some life. Excellent. I think we want to plow during our turn so that our opponent doesn't have access to prowess triggers. This is playing around a potential daze. And we get another kitty cat. It's a Dragon's Rage Channeler. We do have an answer for that, obviously, in the Solitude. Right, they're putting a cutter on it. Again, I think we can take the 4 here because if we can leverage some life gain of these things, it makes them much better. Right, I would take a white card. Not a white card. A Wasteland is actively bad news for us. Okay. I think we are playing a Haliya here. If they have a daze here, we're in trouble. It's a force. Yeah, that's bad news, isn't it? So now attacking here feels awkward. Alright, we're going to hold this in case I have a Murktide Regent, because a hasty Murktide Regent is extra scary. A Brainstorm. Yep, that's not ideal. So we can block with the Ocelot Pride, give it protection so that we end up with 1 life, which kind of cancels out the Monk token because this does have Trample. We can also just put some creatures under the bus. I can't make a hasty Murktide this turn though. I don't think we're allowed to go to Lightning Bolt range. I think we do have to kill this. But the Haliya is going to be good here. Alright, they're playing another spell. Is this just... Oh, they got black mana. That is a shocker. I didn't see that at all up until this point. A Molten Collapse on this. That's their second spell. We have to Solitude here. Kill this. So they get their Monk. Get their Surveil. So this is going to be a 3-3. So they can hit us for 3 this turn. Do we protect ourselves and take 5? And then play the Heliya next turn and gain 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you draw a land, we end up with a City's Blessing. Alright, it's going to protect itself here. We get protection from red. The other option there is to give our Ocelot Pride protection. I will trade my 2 cats, I think, for a Monk token, given the choice. Especially when we know this is going to work. Okay, so the Heliya comes in, gains us life. So does the Ocelot Pride, just by attacking. I don't think they're going to cast 2 spells. I think we just want to get the Heliya in here. This draws a card on its own. The Ocelot Pride will... Sorry, this gains a life on its own. The Ocelot Pride will gain us 1 life. The Ocelot Pride will make a token. That token will gain us a life. Then we'll draw a card off of the Heliya. So we're going to end up drawing a bonus card here. We're back up to 6. Put this on the bottom so that we get the token first, so that we have enough life gain to draw a bonus card. A Witch Enchanter. That does blow up a Kori Steelcutter, doesn't it? Without leaving them the ability to get a creature back. We also have a 3-3, which is kind of hench. Alright. If they can string together a bunch of cantrips, this can get a little bit spooky for us. But we can just put the Heliya in and give it protection. We are so close to turning this around as well. We don't need much. Because the Ocelot Pride is going to do its thing. A Tamiyo. That's okay. So we have knowledge of what our opponent has in their hand, which is nothing. Alright, so they're going to go in and they're going to get themselves a clue here, I think. This attacks for 1 damage, but that's fine. Okay, so we can take our opponent off of black mana next turn as well, but we have a lot of choices. We have to see what we draw and then make decisions. A Plains. Okay, so we can play out a Plains. So we could Skyclave Apparition and take out our opponent's black source. That might be really useful. Means that they might not be able to draw anything that matters next turn. I quite like that. Right, 1, 2, 3. And then we'll take out this Kori Steelcutter. I think that's better than taking out a Tamiyo here. I could be wrong on that one though. So we can attack with the Haliya. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we will have the City's Blessing in a second. Right, then we just send in the Haliya. Go to the end step. So we put this on the bottom. So Ocelot Pride comes out, makes us some tokens, gains us some life. We end up with the Solitude. Do we want to immediately Solitude this Tamiyo? I don't think so. Our opponent has scary things in their deck like Murktide Regent that can be a little bit much for us. If they go to flip the Tamiyo somehow, we can also deal with that. Okay, this is a Brainstorm. I will destroy this Tamiyo. And gain some life in the process. They can crack a clue token here. Just get this Tamiyo out of here. Reducing the power of all of our creatures by 1 is a pretty gnarly ability given how many little 1/1s we make. But now we're just making Ocelot Pride tokens 2 at a time every turn. If we find another Ocelot Pride, we're obviously sitting pretty. Alright, we got the match. We got the GGs there. Yeah, those were good games. Like, it was really tight and we had to work out the correct way to use our resources to not only stay alive, but make sure that we had enough of a board that we could actually win the game later on. Alright, not bad. Let's go to round number 3. If you are looking to buy some Magic cards, not only does 3for1 Trading have a wonderful online store linked in the description of this video, but they will also have booths at upcoming events. MagicCon Atlanta from the 26th to 28th of September, Eternal Weekend Pittsburgh from the 9th to the 12th of October, and Spiel 25 in Essen from the 23rd to the 26th of October. Whether you're looking to sell off cards you don't need or add more to your collection, 3for1 Trading has got you covered. Yeah, this hand is okay. We might have to use this Witch Enchanter for mana at some point, which isn't ideal, but I'll take it. So if we go turn 1 Mother Rones, turn 2 Guide of Souls, Haliya. So Guide of Souls. No, we play Haliya, then Guide of Souls. That's still not enough to gain the 3 life we need. So maybe we wait on that. We'll see what our opponent does. A Tropical Island. So immediately my Nadu sense is tingling. Chalice for 0. Not Nadu. What is this? I don't know what this is. Okay. I think we play this on Cleric. Get ourselves an uncounterable Mother of Runes. We could get an uncounterable Guide of Souls, and next turn we can draw a bonus card. I think I like that slightly more. Blue and green is not really removal colours, so I'm pretty down to have this. So next turn we can play Haliya into Mother, and then Haliya gains us 2 life, Mother gains us 2 life, and that's a card draw. They're Cycling Alorian revealed, so let's see if they've got any additional colours. Nope, just a trop. This Chalice of the Void is confusing me a little bit. Are they like an interesting Omnitail build? Perhaps? That would make some sense, I guess, because that's the sort of deck that's playing, you know, impulses and stock ups. Like it does obviously have Ponders and Brainstorms, but you can build it in a way where you're not doing that because you just need to dig as deep as possible for a specific piece. Obviously Ponder does dig, so I don't know. Blue and blue. Chalice, X equals 1. Well, we have a Cavern of Souls, which is looking mighty fine about now. Haliya Guided by Light. What do we want to do here? Play out our planes. We could go and get a different cleric if we want to. Sound the most exciting. I think this is just Mother of Runes. Uncounterably. We gain a little bit of energy. We attack for a little bit here. Chalice on 0, Chalice on 1. What deck is this off of Tropical Islands? Like if it is Show and Tell, then we have the Witch Enchanter to put in. It's a stock up. So this is feeling like what I said it might be. I don't think we get to do anything with the Witch Enchanter that isn't holding it for the purposes of bashing in and trying to blow up an Omniscience while they don't have the ability to play instant sorceries. Because there is a window where if you put a trigger on the stack from the thing you put in with the Show and Tell, they can't just immediately cast their Emrakul. They have to wait for the stack to clear. So you can like blow up their Omniscience and they can only cast instants. Now, sometimes they just Cunning Wish and get something that kills you anyway. But sometimes you just win the game, so it's worth playing to this out. Mind drawing a land, that gives us a Haliya. And that can beat for a reasonable amount. We can't Starfield Shepherd for anything particularly exciting. Ocelot Pride is just a cat. It's not some sort of cat cleric. That would be nice. Alright, our opponent's stocked up and now it's back to us. Okay, I will play this as a Witch Blessed Meadow. I think if we don't draw that, we don't play out the one that we do have. I think we would hold it in hand. Right, let's have an uncounterable cleric. Oh wait, Haliya's not a cleric. That's why it's not working. They can counterspell this. But if they want to spend 2 cards on this Haliya when we've just got another one, that's fine. Do I think this matchup is about our Mother of Runes? I don't think so. I think we need to get the damages in. I don't believe our opponent's going to be interacting with our creatures. They're just going to be playing giant monsters off of Show and Tell and stuff. We did not gain enough life to draw a card here. But next turn, we can Starfield Shepherd, Show and Tell. Alright, here goes the thing we have. Okay, so I think we blow up this. We can beat an Emrakul. Especially now, we can go and get an Ocelot Pride and make a bunch of tokens. We could also just draw Solitude, that'd be nice. Not a Solitude. This guy gets super large, but is that what we're doing right now? I don't think it is. I think this is warp this guy in, go and get a cat, play a cat, get our triggers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the City's Blessing will be in effect, so we'll get 2 tokens. So where is our Ocelot Pride? There it is. Here is your Ocelot Pride. This is obviously a prime counterspell target. And we're going to draw an extra card at end of turn here if this resolves. It's not going to resolve, so we're not going to get the extra card. I think that's a pretty wise move from our opponent there. Now we can still draw into an answer for what our opponent has, because we are a Solitude deck. We need to work out what we're sacrificing here. I imagine the Mother of Runes is part of that equation. Probably the Witch Enchanter. How much? Annihilator 6. That's a lot, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we get to keep one thing. It probably has to just be a Plains here. Sad as that is. If we have had the Ocelot Pride, we could have just kept the Ocelot Pride going. Our opponent probably is aware that we have a Solitude, the fact that we're not scooping to this. That is a stock up. Okay. At least we correctly worked out what our opponent's deck was pretty much from the first chalice. Like, it could have been some random brew, but we managed to work something out. And they have a stock up going, so they're probably going to have some good follow up. Do we draw the Solitude? We did draw the Solitude. I wish we'd have drawn you last turn. Solitude pitching Swords to Plowshares, I guess. We're still playing a game of Magic the Gathering, unless they counterspell this and we lose. Not a big fan of them cracking a land. That suggests they have something. Plane of Genesis. Okay, so they're digging for that counterspell. This is a pretty cool one. It's impulse, but you can also just put a land into tapped if you're going to take a land, which is pretty cool. Certainly one of the less egregious Modern Horizons 3 cards. It's just a fine little card that sometimes has a little role to play. Okay, they put a land in. So I think we're going to get our Solitude off here. Now, there's still a lot of this game left to play. And it can immediately fall apart if our opponent just show and tells again. We will need to find some land. But if this Solitude was like one card higher up in our deck, then I think we just easily win this game. Brain Surge. Wow, I haven't seen one of these for a long time. Another Modern Horizons 3 card that is interesting and not ridiculously busted like some of them tend to be. Alright, they've got mana over there. They're going to just hard cast Omniscience at some point. If we give them enough time, that's what will happen. Plains. Not a Plains. There's no point just cycling this to gain 1 life. It's not cycling it because we don't draw a card. We just pay 1 to gain 1. That doesn't seem like a great rate on our investment there. We can pitch it to Solitude. We can pitch the Voice of the Blessed to Solitude. Show and tell. I guess we put in the Solitude and hope they don't just have the Omniscience. Right, goodbye Atraxa. We now have a win condition, which is cool. What do they have here? Show and tell Omniscience. Well, that's probably going to beat us, isn't it? Do they have a land in there? They don't have a land. I don't think we're going to win this game, team. So what do they get? Cunning Wish, Chalice of the Void, Omniscience, Uro, Show and Tell. Okay. I don't think we'll win this one. They're going to play the Chalice now, right? Yep. So they get to Show and Tell Omniscience next turn. What is our solution to that little conundrum? This Wasteland absolutely dragging us down right now. I guess we attack with the Solitude. So Show and Tell in the Omniscience. They have the Cunning Wish. They just kill us with the Cunning Wish, actually. Let's not waste our time anymore. Because Cunning Wish can go and get them shared summons, which lets them hard cast an Emrakul. And then we die. So, cards that are interesting here. The Deafening Silence can slow them down a bit. And the Haliya can sometimes slow them down, but not that much. Mother of Runes isn't that good. They're a blue-green deck. They're not really going to be trying to remove our creatures, so that can get out. Swords to Plowshares pretty bad unless they have a pivot plan, so maybe we just get rid of all the swords. That gives us a couple of Haliya, and then maybe we can trim. What is Skyclave Apparition doing in this matchup? If they have the 1 ring, Skyclave Apparition looks great. If they don't have the 1 ring, it looks bad. I guess we'll take 1 out for a Haliya and just see if we can slow our opponent's roll that way. We'll keep our infinite combo in. Our opponent can show and tell us into the combo, because we can put in like the Heliod without having to cast it and then just maybe get a win going out of nowhere. What does this do? Turn 1 we do this, turn 2 we do this, and that's what? Nothing. That's mulligan. Guide of Souls into Shepherd. So this does assemble a combo on turn 3. That doesn't feel great. I don't know how we're supposed to reliably beat this matchup. We need our opponent to have to dig a lot for what they want. This is a lot of lands though. I think we can go deeper here. Now we just go like Guide of Souls into Haliya. That's pretty reasonable. Yeah, this is the best one so far. So we have to put 2 cards back. So we get rid of this and this. And then we just get to do the thing that we came here to do. Let's Guide of Souls into Ocelot Pride. And then we get to play Voice of the Blessed. Now, if they counterspell this, it's really frustrating. If they counterspell this, we have another payoff for life gains. That's fine. But this is the better one for them to counterspell. But obviously they don't know that at the time. Just a hedge maze. Do we need to go tall with this Voice of the Blessed right now? Or do we just want the Ocelot Pride? I think the Voice of the Blessed actually is more damage. Okay, okay. Has that changed things? Because if we play out the Ocelot Pride, when we play the Heliod, everything just goes bananas, doesn't it? Alright, I think we're just going to play out the Voice. I think it's the quicker clock that we have access to. This gets out of hand super quickly. So does the Ocelot Pride. There is a card from Bloomburrow that does a similar thing to this. It like grows when you gain life, and then if you lost life in a turn, it has some other abilities. And then when it dies, you move the counters. But the actual abilities you get off this is just way better than that one. But that card is 1 and a white, so maybe it is better to cast than this. Although we're casting it just fine here. We are a mono white deck. We should be able to cast a white 2-drop. Let's hope our opponent doesn't kill us this turn, because that would be bad. But yeah, like I said, combo matchup's going to be hard for us. Particularly ones like this where a lot of our hate doesn't really line up that well. It's not like they're just trying to play a bunch of storm spells, and we can just hit that with a Deafening Silence. Like, they can beat Deafening Silence, it just slows them down a little bit. What have we got here? Oh, wowzers, trousers. That is an interesting proposition. We can play this Walking Ballista, then if our opponent's show and tells in an Emrakul, we put in the Heliod, we untap, and then we win the game? That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Is this what we're doing right now, though? I think it does give us an interesting line. I think we're going to go for this. I don't think this is worth interacting with for our opponent, to be honest. But we'll see. They might play in a Genesis in response just to get some more information. Blue and blue. We dazing that, just a hard cast daze, okay. So the Ocelot Pride line would have been better, but obviously we didn't know that at the time. Also, if we put the Heliod in off of the show and tell, then when we play this Ocelot Pride, this can attack as a creature. Ideally, though, we just don't want our opponent to cast show and tell. That's the thing we're trying to avoid. I think 9 times out of 10, or probably more than 9 times out of 10, they cast a show and tell and we immediately lose. They could cast a Eureka here. I'm not casting anything. Okay. I'll take this bonus turn that we've been so kindly gifted. You can play this into this, and that kind of pops off hard. Alright, let's warp this in. This does expose the Ocelot Pride to a daze. We already have a payoff for life gain. We have a way of converting life gain into damage. Brain Surge. Okay. It digs deep. Right, so we're going to be gaining some life, which is going to be growing our voice. We'll play another creature. They could hardcast a daze here. They did not. Voice is pretty large. I think we're going to grow the Guide of Souls. Just have 2 separate threats here. Puts our opponent pretty low. Put the warp ability on the bottom, and then the card draw, and then the Ocelot Pride. We're popping off in a big way here, but our opponent can just go over the top with Emrakuls. Starfield Shepherd. Putting in a 5-drop is not the worst thing we can do either. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we put the Heliod in, it will be a creature, so it will trigger all of our life gain. Are we supposed to put in the Starfield Shepherd or the Heliod here? I think it's the Heliod. They have an Omniscience. The chance of us being dead here are pretty high. We will pump this Ocelot Pride, I guess. Maybe we're just supposed to keep our voice extra large. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if they cast just an Emrakul, we can beat that. So we did have a line where we probably could have killed our opponent with a Walking Ballista if this did resolve earlier. Alright, so we're going to get an extra turn. And they're going to annihilate our permanents. Not my favourite thing in the world. But we do have lethal on the crackback, so they've got to be a little bit careful here. Now they could just cast another Emrakul. They could cast an Atraxa. There's a whole bunch of spooky friends they could have. How many permanents are we going to lose? 6 is a lot, isn't it? We'll take 1, 2... How many do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we get to keep 1 permanent. So we're going to keep our massive friend. Not quite big enough. We could have put 2 more counters on it earlier. And we could have had 3 more counters on it in total. But that wouldn't be enough to beat an Emrakul. Just say you have nothing and let us attack. What is this? Exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. Draw a card. That feels like a little bit of a desperation play of just trying to draw some extra stuff. Destroy target artifact, destroy target Tarman, or cremate. Okay. Atraxa is pretty good. Now we can beat this. We can't beat this though, because they can Cunning Wish for something that kills us, or they can just play another Emrakul. Yep, it's always going to be tough for like a relatively fair aggro deck to beat a show and tell deck. Now, show and tell decks aren't doing very well right now in Legacy because they're very bad into all the blue-black and blue-red and neutral spells and all those sorts of decks hanging around. But when they pair into something like Arsenal or Eldrazi, they can really stomp. Okay, on to round 4. This hand kind of does a thing, but does have a significant drawback because we need to do a Witch Enchanter to get there. This could be Wastelanded and then we have nothing. That feels a bit spooky, but like a single plains is really strong here, and the power level of our hand is good enough to tangle with most things at this point because Guide of Souls into Ocelot Pride is quite the drug. A Duress. No! They're going to take our Swords to Plowshares. That's not too bad. For a minute I thought they were going to take the Witch Enchanter. I remember this is a creature. It's not one of the ones that's not a creature. I thought they were going to be able to dress our land for a second, and I freaked out. Alright, these Wastelands look like they're going to be absolutely useless, which is lovely. That's not a plains, is it? Do we play the Ocelot Pride? I think we play the Guide of Souls who doesn't die to Bowmasters. Duress tends to be something you see out of combo decks though. So next turn we can make an Ocelot Pride and maybe Wasteland something. This could be like Beseech Saga Storm, so they might play an Ezra Saga into our Wasteland here. Could be Turbo Depths, it's possible. They could also just kill us with a bunch of Dark Rituals into something spooky as well. A Chromox. Alright, we're just pairing into all the Storm players today, so we're probably going to have a pretty rough time. Infernal Tutor. So this is a fair Infernal Tutor. There's just revealing a dark ritual there. How are we supposed to beat this? Here's the neat thing. You don't, I guess. So here is our Ocelot Pride. This will at least give us the ability to make our opponent need an additional point of Storm from where we were at the start of the turn. Because we're going to have 19 life at the end of this turn. Alright, there is a thing we get to hit. We can take it out now so that it doesn't get to learn how to make mana. This Wasteland's not doing anything else, so we may as well do that. It also can be a bargainable for a Beseech the Mirror line. But any interaction we have is worth looking toward. If they are the mono black Saga Storm, they're going to have a hard time removing our Deafening Silence, which is good news. The Haliya will cantrip this turn as well. Yeah, that doesn't do anything for us, does it? Let's warp this in. Just going to gain a little bit of life here. Play this Wasteland. To crack in, we can make our Ocelot Pride slightly bigger, so that gives us more life and means they have to get a higher storm count, which can be a difficult thing to do if they're not doing like a big line where you just have like all the resources available to you, because there are a lot of lines where they kind of get close to 10 storm but maybe can't really get above 10 storm. That's what we're hoping for. Let's make a kitty cat, let's gain some life, just draw a card. It's another Heliya. Not the best, but we can just cycle these because it will still trigger the gain life even if we put 2 of them out. We only get a card from one of them. Alright, that is not a wastelandable land that our opponent has played there. They're casting a Mox Opal. Here's one of the Dark Rituals. We're going to see the next one. Yep. Is this going to be an Ad Nauseam line from 14? It's an Infernal Tutor for Ad Nauseam line. But they've already got a little bit of Storm here. So they've got Mox, Ritual, Ritual, Tutor, Mox, Ritual, Ritual, Tutor, and the Ad Nauseam. So they're halfway there. But they're going to have no mana left in their pool, right? Oh, they Beseech the Mirroring instead. Is this just going to be... Is this a deterministic line with the guy's Blessing, right? They go Storm... This is 6. Oh, they're just going to go for the Beseech the Mirror, then they go and get this. So this will be 7, 8, 9... Okay, so I have 3 mana here. And they go up to 5 mana. They need to find 1 mana from somewhere, right? Am I missing something? Probably am. We'll just let them play it out. Because this doesn't tap for mana. They can tutor. Oh, no, they just Beseech the Mirror, right? They Beseech the Mirror, bargain away one of these. I was too busy thinking about... Well, they're going for an Infernal Tutor line here. And he's going to get like a Lion's Eye Diamond. Yeah. So they can tap the Mox Opal. Then they crack this, and then they Beseech away the Chromox. So they've gone through more hoops than they needed to, but they're just sort of flexing they can. Oh no, I suppose they needed to go through extra hoops because we're on 26. So should... Oh, do they forget to crack the LED in response? Well, they're thought seizing us. Wait, what? I don't understand. I think they made a mistake and they just want some more information about our deck. But I think they had the win here. Maybe they just didn't hold priority with this when they cracked it, because that would have been lethal. Yeah, that feels like a big swing and a miss from our opponent, unless I've missed something here. Oh wait, no, they've still got the Lines of Diamond for the Beseech the Mirror, right? Yeah, sorry. No, we are just dead. I forgot that they still had the guy as well running. Okay. Storm. Well, we have lots of stuff for Storm. And this particular build actually is a little bit weak to Faerie Macabre compared to the other one we played. So we're going to be boarding in 14 cards. So I guess we get rid of some combo-y stuff. Get rid of the Heliod. We don't need Solitudes. We don't need Mother of Runes. We don't need Swords to Plowshares. We can probably trim one Haliya. We don't want multiples of those. We could trim... Actually, is Haliya better than a Skyclave? Probably not. Okay, we'll try this. So turn 1 Deafening Silence is what we're here for. And then everything else should come together after that. We can Wasteland to stop There's a Saga being a plan, so their backup plan won't work. Now, they probably have some off-color spells. They're not just mono-black in the sideboard. But if we can play a Null Rod effect as well, then they're going to be in trouble. And because they're slower than the Echo builds, it means that in Game 3, we're probably going to have a chance to make a play or two before we die. And if we can make a hate piece that our opponent can't take out of our hand, then we'll be in good shape. That is a Lion's Eye Diamond. That is your spell for the turn. Okay, I'll play this Wasteland. I will deploy this Ocelot Pride, because it can gain us life quicker. And if we draw a white source, we can play the Voice of the Blessed. And then that will start growing when our Ocelot Pride connects. Do we need to just shut down their graveyard? I think we just need to get our hate pieces in play. Like, it's possible there is some like Echo stuff going on in our opponent's deck. I don't know. What about another Lion's Eye Diamond? A Null Rod. Okay, we'll just play all of our hate pieces. That might be game, though. Yeah, it is game. Okay, so the combination of Deafening Silence and Null Rod is enough to kill our opponent. That's good enough information to have, but we kind of guessed that anyway. It's the best thing we can do. Let's just jam right in again. So the other option we had that turn was to do the Shepherd to go and get planes, use the planes to then play our Ocelot, our Guide of Souls. This is great if we get a turn. If we get 2 turns, this is great. I think we have to keep it. We can't just mulligan just to Deafening Silence, especially when our opponent is a slower Storm list than the Echo ones. They can still kill us on turn 1, I'm sure. So they're going to take the Stony Silence here. I think that is a slam dunk take. Like, they can play around Resting Peace, but Stony Silence is brutal. There it goes. I prefer the old art, but it's not what we have today. A Soul Warden. Let's play a Guide of Souls. So next time we have a choice about making pressure or playing the Rest in Peace. The Rest in Peace obviously does some work, but getting pressure might reduce the amount of turns our opponent gets to play the game. So, tricky. Ideally, we can just draw a Deafening Silence, though. That would be lovely. At least I feel like we have good sideboard cards for this matchup, unlike the Show and Tell matchup, where we didn't really have enough stuff to matter. Is our opponent going off this turn, or are they just having a setup turn? Feels like they're going off. They're playing out their Lion's Eye Diamond. They've got the Chrome Mox online, 2 cards in hand, so it's probably going to be... Okay, Infernal Tutor, they crack into LED in response. They are. So this is going to be a Beseech the Mirror line. Does this kill us? I would imagine so, right? Because they Beseech into Beseech to build up Storm. And then their guys will... But they don't have, like, much mana outside this Lion's Eye Diamond. I mean, this is for our opponent to figure out, not me. Like, we just smile and nod. We just want to play some little Soul Wardens and gain some life. Alright, so this is turn 2, so they haven't got a land drop to play. So they've got this. They can play the Chrome Mox, but they can't imprint anything. They can play Infernal Tutor for a Lion's Eye Diamond here. That gets them up to 4 mana to cast this Beseech, which will be lethal when it goes and gets 10. They don't have anything to... Oh no, they have the Chrome Mox to bargain away, right? Yep. Yep, okay. Our opponent found the line there. And then this is just going to be the bargainable material for their Beseech the Mirror. The speed at which our opponent found this line was certainly far faster than I would ever find that line when I'm playing it. I'm not very good at playing Storm decks, to be honest with you. Alright, 4 rounds down. Unfortunately, we've run into 3 combo decks. So we're having a bad time with our mono-white deck. But we did take a game off of Storm both times. We've got 1 round left to go. Let's see if we can put a little bit of pity points back into the kitty by going 2 and 3. Our opening hand here is not one that we can keep. Considering our deck is absolutely jam-packed with 1-drops, we need to do better. This hand is pretty bad as well. What are we doing about this? We're on draw. We do have Ocelot Pride, though. I think we're going to keep, and we're going to get rid of this Eiganjo, I think. Just keep our basics so we can play underneath any sort of Wasteland pressure. Keep a Wasteland. I think this is going to be more useful than Eiganjo a lot of the time. Goblin Welder, you say? That's a signal that our opponent's almost certainly on Painter or something very spicy. Obviously, Painter can be very spicy in and of itself. Are we playing the Guide of Souls or are we playing the Ocelot Pride? I think we play the Guide of Souls. Okay, so we have a Wasteland that we can point at an Urza's Saga. We have a Witch Enchanter, which does have some pretty good text. It is 4 mana, but we can get there. As long as we don't have to keep burning our Wasteland and stuff on things like Urza's Saga. If they just play a bunch of mountains and let us make our land drops, we can probably get this Witch Enchanter going. Melded Moxite? Yes. So 2 mana. When this artifact enters, you may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. Sacrifice this artifact, create a robot. Okay, so this allows them to put stuff in the graveyard for Welder. So we could be getting something like Chaos Defiler into play this turn, and then I think we're in trouble. Painted Servant. Okay, that is not the super spooky one that it could have been. But they could Welder stuff in. They're lightning bolting our poor little defenseless guy. Bit rude. So what are we hoping for here? Just to keep making land drops and... Okay, I don't hate having access to a source to Plowshares. We kind of need to wait for the Goblin Welders to act. I'm just going to put this Painter in. We can exile the Painter if that happens. Otherwise, in our opponent's end step, we probably just plow away this Welder because we know we can untap into the Skyclave. Another lightning bolt. 1 card in our opponent's hand, though. I don't think they're going to attack with their Welder. So this is 3 mana to make a robot. Let's get rid of this. I assume they're just going to weld into the Painter. It makes their deck better. Having Painter in play, all their blasts become 1 mana, do whatever you want. Yep. They could Pyroblast to protect their Welder here. They did not. Okay. That doesn't necessarily mean they don't have it, though. Right, let's get in with the Skyclave. Let's remove this Painter from the equation. So we have a Witch Enchanter that can either be a pitch card for a Solitude, a land, or a disenchant. So a lot of stuff going on. What do you even name this Disruptor Flute? Starfield Shepherd, maybe? Wasteland. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So they probably have access to an Urza's Saga in their deck. Well, they probably have many Urza's Sagas in their deck. And they're just playing towards that. Alright, that is a Painted Servant. I would like to draw into a land and just hardcast this Enchanter. It's pretty good. There is a Wasteland. I will cast this, knowing it's going to work and blow up their Painted Servant. Having 4 of these in a deck does feel quite nice. In for 2 with the Skyclave. And we are on top of this game. If we draw a land, then we can Solitude. If we draw a white card, we can also Solitude. An Arena of Glory. We can't Wasteland that because of the Disruptor Flute. Okay, maybe we have a different plan. Maybe we do want our Wastelands to do stuff. So we're getting a nice attack in for 4 here. We are certainly ahead. Now our opponent's deck has things like Fable, which can provide some pretty good value. And they can also maybe do something spooky with Arena of Glory. Using Arena of Glory to make a Lava Sphere Boots is exactly what Arena of Glory would like to do, right? It just loves things going fast. Okay, I will blow this up. I think it's better to hold this Solitude, then deploy the Soul's Attendant. It doesn't really impact the clock unless our opponent has an Ancient Tomb this turn. But they're not just going to play Ancient Tomb and tap it, are they? So I don't think this matters to the clock. And being a white card to pitch is really important. We've still got a Wasteland ready for any sort of spooky thing we need to deal with here. Do I care about this? Sure, I will just take it out now. Alright, our opponent's had enough of us. I don't blame them. Let's go to the sideboard. We've got some tools here. We do have tools. Null Rod, get over here. And I would like these Stony Silences, please. Rest in Peace also has some pretty good text. And I also quite like Mother of Runes here, because they're going to be playing things like Fury and obviously all the lightning bolts you've seen. I don't think we want the Walking Ballista combo in this matchup. And then that leaves us 3 more cuts. So I think we can probably trim on 1 Haliya. And then this feels good. The Mothers feel good. All the removal feels good. Starfield Shepherd, maybe we can trim there. And then it gets a little bit tricky what the last trim is. Maybe it is just a Skyclave, because they are 3 mana. That's a little bit of a later thing. Although maybe it's the Starfield Shepherd because we don't need as many tutors. We don't have our combo to tutor for either. So, yeah, okay, we'll try this. Yeah, we've got a couple of removal spells. One of them takes a little bit of mana to get there, but we can also shut down their welder plans. And they are on Goblin Welder, which probably means they're on Goblin Engineer as well. So being able to shut down all of the welders in their deck is really strong. And answering Rest in Peace is something they can do. They can answer anything because they're a painter deck, but it's not the easiest. Obviously, I prefer to have some Stony Silence action, but we'll see what happens. The way they played this out suggests to me that our opponent has access to a Red Blast here. I think we're just going to Wasteland our opponent first. That's a welder. They didn't get in for one. Wonder what that means for us. Oh, they just said oops. Okay, fair enough. We're going to do this now. So if our opponent wants to use a Red Blast, it's going to cost them the Lotus Petal. Nope, it's just gone. And it's gone because it's an exile removal spell. Next turn we can just deploy the Rest in Peace. We're not under any pressure. We just need to make sure we don't get bopped by the nonsense things our opponent's deck can do. Not a fan of this. What do they have? Hopefully just something relatively fair. And not like the Chaos Defiler that can blow up all of our things as we go on. Just a Dragon Engine. Okay. This is obviously good and annoying, but here we are. An Ensnaring Bridge. Well, we do have Skyclave and the Witch Enchanter, whatever it's called. So we have ways of dealing with that later on. I think this turn is get the Rest in Peace in, shut off these welders, and then we follow it up, ideally, with a Skyclave, or we Starfield Shepherd for Plains and play the Guide of Souls. One of those plays is certainly better than the other. I'd very much like to just get rid of this Phyrexian Dragon Engine while we can, because it does swing for 4, and we don't care about the goblins that much. They're just doing a little bit of damage. We can take the chip damage, but 4 damage is quite a lot. Okay, we didn't draw what we wanted to, so this is going to be warping this. Like, taking chip shots is something we can kind of ignore because we just gain it back after time. Get nice basic planes. Deploy a Guide of Souls. Next turn we can start doing our Skyclave stuff. We could also just play some Voice of the Blessed. If we play 2 of these, then we end up with a 4/4, which can trade with a Dragon Engine, but I don't really want to trade with it. So the plays from our opponent that are the scariest are things like Painter into Red Blast here. So they're going to come in for... Why are they coming in with this guy? That's very suspicious. 1 damage. What 1 damage could they possibly have that I care about? They might just be putting us to a test. I think that is worth doing. Like, this is making me wonder what's going on over there. Because obviously this is an attack where we're just going to happily bounce. Assuming Spirit Guide. But our opponent doing this, they have the information that we know that. So why would they be doing that? I really enjoy like little gamesmanship stuff like this. I think it's really interesting. Okay, Source to Plowshares is huge here. Let's plow this. Deploy Voice of the Blessed. We gain a life. We grow our guy. So now we have the biggest thing on the board. Next turn we can play another voice or we can deploy the Skyclave. And I think we're in a good spot. Our opponent does still have 3 cards in hand, so depending on what they are, this game could go either way. We're trying to not see things like Fable that can just give them a lot of material. That would be really annoying. Painter's Servant. Do you have a Red Blast to go with that Painter's Servant? Because that could get us. I guess we're going to find out. And 4 counters on this for it to be vigilant. So I think we're going to play this relatively conservatively and safely. I'm going to save this Wasteland for Urza's Sagas. I'm not interested in trading it for a Great Furnace. If something changes where we do want to get rid of the Great Furnace, we can do it in response to the thing that makes it change. Okay, so we don't gain any life. We don't get to remove their Painter's Servant. So if our opponent has a Grindstone, they can kill us. That's an interesting decision for us. If we take this out now and they draw a land, they can kill us with a Grindstone anyway. Okay, I think we need to be a coward and we do have to go for the Great Furnace here. Melted Moxite. So this is going to let them cycle through some cards. So let's see what they're going to cycle through. They all go into the Rest in Peace Void. Alright, a great... an Ancient Tomb. Okay. I can't turn this into a robot just yet. I wonder if we draw like a plow, we could try and plow this Painted Servant and then play a Voice of the Blessed and have both of them ticking up, and then we can start pressuring our opponent. Draw a Solitude, and then we can Skyclave holding up Solitude. Stony Silence, that's a good one, isn't it? Is that better than Skyclave here, though? I think I want the Skyclave in, because this turns off Red Blast as well. If they have a Red Blast, it's kind of a moot point either way. Just gains us life, grows our friend. I think we're still on defense this turn, and then hopefully we can draw a land and double spell next turn. We can get Stone Silence and the Voice of the Blessed, and then I'll be feeling pretty safe. A Grindstone. Okay. Glad we got rid of the Painter. A Braid on the Guide of Souls. Sure. So that's going to stop our life gain from happening, which is a little bit annoying. A Witch Enchanter. Okay, I think we play this one out. Then we go for Stony Silence. And then we get our second Voice of the Blessed in. And then if we draw a land, we can play the Starfield Shepherd. If we don't draw a land, then we've drawn a spell, and that's good too. So I think we're in a very solid spot. But the thing about Painter is it can wriggle out of anything, because Painter plus Pyroblast is a wonderful tool. They could have High-Cast Fury, which can take out both of these, and that puts us massively on the back foot. Fortunately for us, it doesn't look like that's what's happening. A Guide of Souls. Okay, let's have a Guide of Souls. It doesn't do anything on its own this turn. Am I being too cagey? Like, if we attack with this, they can block with everything, and we take out some stuff. Like, we may as well just wait one more turn, because if we gain one more life with this, then we're having a great time. And our opponent's stuff is not really working because of our Stony Silence. And then the Rest in Peace is shutting off other stuff. Okay, I think I'm just going to cast this. Like, we could use it to get the Starfield Shepherd in, but I think the way that we lose this game right now is if our opponent has, like, some fair beatdowny type stuff, like Furies and that sort of jazz. Okay, so now they can't kill this Voice, so we can send it in. I don't think we need to pay anything for that yet. So next turn, we're either Starfield Shepherding or whatever we draw off the top. We could draw, like, Stony Silence, Rest in Peace, Null Rod, that sort of stuff. It doesn't matter here because we already have them in play, but it doesn't hurt having redundant copies when we're this far ahead. Alright, I'll play this out. What are we going to name here? I think it's Cleric. Let's cast this. This gets us our little... It's probably the Ocelot Pride here. That's what pops off the hardest. So this has Vigilance now. So if we put some counters on this, it's a 2-turn clock, right? We also have the Starfield Shepherd that can just swing in. I think our opponent is very done here. So I think we could have won this game quicker if we didn't play the Witch Enchanter as a creature and played it as a land, because then we could have played the Starfield Shepherd. Then this turn we could have popped off and had a bunch of stuff. But I think just making sure that the Grindstone isn't there, so we're just making sure that we don't lose, right? We're so far ahead, we're just trying to tick all the boxes in case something goes wrong and we lose, like, our Stony Silence somehow. GG opponent. I think this is going to be a difficult matchup for our opponent, given the amount of hate cards we have and the fact that our mid-range plan is going to be better than theirs. All right. So we finished this league with a 2-3 result, which isn't great, but the rounds we lost were against combo decks that we don't have a lot for. We can do stuff into Reanimator. I don't think that's a problem. But Storm is tricky, especially Echo Storm, where they go on turn 1. And Show and Tell, we just don't have the tools to deal with that, really. We can hope to put in a Witch Enchanter, and that's about it. So let's talk about the deck. Honestly, I think I could play this deck into any non-like turn 1 to 3 combo deck and feel like I can win the matchup. I think we just beat down any fair deck so well. And in, like, the sort of mirror, having things like the Soul's Attendant can actually break the mirror completely, because whenever they're doing stuff, we're gaining life again. And the Voice of the Blessed ends up just enormous. And this is going to be able to be better than, like, whatever the Guide of Souls is doing on their side of the board. It's like, oh, well, you've got Guide of Souls. You're putting 2 counters on. Well, I'm getting, like, 5 counters on this a turn. And it has Vigilance. What are you doing? And it's indestructible. The indestructible doesn't really matter that much because it's the plows and stuff. But we have Mother Rune's Protector. We also have the Infinite Combo, which can go over the top of anything as well. So I think this list is really solid, actually. Now, you could try and address the combo matchup by taking out Thalias and putting in Mindbreak Traps. That would probably have helped us in the Storm matchups today. So that's something to think about. I also think we don't need 3 Skyclaves, and I would like another land. So we've got 18 lands plus 4 Witch Enchanter, which is 22 2 lands, because we have quite a lot of stuff to do with our mana, you know, we're trying to play these out. We want to activate our Heliods. We need to make sure we have white for the Voice of the Blessed. And, you know, we're doing, you know, tutors for 2 mana into something. I think we can cut 1 Skyclave and add 1 Plains. If you wanted to, you could go up on combo pieces. If you wanted to have 1 more Heliod, you could do that. And I think there are various options of what you could trim for it. You could trim another Skyclave. You could trim a Solitude. You could trim a Mother and just have a Mother as a tutor target and maybe put more in the board. You could trim a Haliya because it's legendary, but this card drawing cards is just so good. So, yeah, definitely some options. And like I said, the sideboard is just like anti-combo because we beat pretty much everything else with this deck. And our combo matchups look pretty bad. I think we're okay into Reanimator because we have white removal, which is a great way to beat those sorts of matchups. And, you know, we can go wide and overpower them. Their fair plan doesn't work against us very well. Archon of Cruelty, we can actually take quite a few hits if we're spamming out tokens. So I think I'd be okay into the blue-black Reanimator matchup as well. It's just, you know, your Storm combo. Doomsday is probably quite horrible. And the Show and Tell matchup is quite horrible. So that's sort of like 3 flavors of combo deck that I don't feel are great. I think we've got play into Nadu. We have a bunch of removal. We can clock pretty quickly. I think Voice of the Blessed is really good and is what this deck should be running. Because if you go like Guide of Souls into Voice of the Blessed, you know, this just gives you more options of like Guide of Souls into Ocelot Pride. It's like the same thing, but you can go tall, and this can just grow out of control and just win loads of matchups on its own. So you could index heavier and play the one from Bloomburrow I mentioned. All right, I've just decided to put it up for you lovely people. So it's a 2/1 for 2 mana. So it is a little bit exposed to things like Bowmasters, but you can play it and just like immediately get a life gain off of one of your Soul Sisters. As long as you've lost life this turn, this creature has flying and vigilance. So the only way that we have to lose life in this particular list is the Witch Enchanter. Now you could run fetches, which gives you access to things like the Shadowy Backstreets as well, but I don't think that's worth it, having played that before. Then it says, whenever you gain life, put +1/+1 counter on it, and then whenever this creature dies, you put its counters on target creature you control. So if they kill it with a removal spell, it flips over. But the removal spells probably aren't killing it unless they're Swords to Plowshares, and then that's just going to remove it anyway. So I'm not really I guess like Fatal Push also hits it as well. Maybe that's okay, but I'm not really sure. This is definitely much worse than the Voice of the Blessed and requires you to jump through a few more hoops to get it working. So I don't think you want this, but if you wanted a 5th copy of Voice of the Blessed, you could lean into this. But yeah, I think this deck is actually really solid, and I think I would rather play a build that looks like this than the one that won the challenge, which has got like Ancient Tombs and Heliod. Like Heliod with the warp stuff is okay. You know, if you warp out this Starfield Shepherd, that's fine. But like that whole deck, the way it wins pretty much is just assembling Ocelot Pride and Guide of Souls. Now we have extra things we can assemble that win the game. We have ways of breaking the mirror. We also have like an infinite combo which we can execute, and we have a tutor for. And this is another payoff as well, because this is just going to turn all your life gain into making your creatures bigger. So I also think the mana base here is way more stable. I had trouble with the mana in the other one, and I think this is a much better mana base to be working with. So I'm a big fan of this list, and I think if you want to innovate on this, you can have something real that you feel pretty happy about playing in Legacy. The one caveat being the really fast combo decks are going to absolutely ruin you, but, you know, there's only so much you can do. Maybe we do need to cut these Thalias and play Mindbreak Traps, and that just gives us like an extra thing for those matchups that can help, and that can get us over the finish line. It's not going to help versus Show and Tell though, which is the issue. If you want help versus Show and Tell, you can play the Containment Priest, which helps versus the Sneak and Show variants. But against Omnitel, it's not doing anything. Like, yes, you can stop them if they go Show and Tell and they just want to put an Emrakul, but mainly they're trying to put Omniscience in anyway. And then they just hardcast Emrakul, and then you get nowhere. But I don't think it's worth playing around Show and Tell decks. They're not doing very well in the meta. Their overrep rate is horrible. And they're about 4.5% of the meta between all variants, which is quite low. I think you just take it on chin and say, yeah, we're going to lose that roughly 5% of matchups. And then maybe we just have some stuff to help against the Storm matchup. And if we can shore that up, I think I'm pretty happy into most decks with this. Like any deck that's trying to play stuff to the board, play fair, it feels like we have a lot of removal and interaction, as well as a quick clock and ways of ignoring any sort of fair creature plan, because we just go bigger than pretty much every creature plan. So yeah, this seems pretty solid. Maybe something like Cloud Post could be an issue perhaps, because they don't really fold to things like Deafening Silence in the same way that the Mystic Forge decks do. But honestly, I think there's some real deck built into this one, and I would like to see some people with a bit more time who don't have to play lots of different things to appease the masses on their channel to take this and run with it, because I think this deck is very solid. And you can even put in more tutor targets with your Starfield Shepherd if you want to. Like, there's definitely some levers to pull on this one, but it feels like a real deck. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. My YouTube tells me that quite a few of you lovely people out there who watch my channel regularly aren't even subscribed, so why not hit that subscribe button? It doesn't cost you anything. If you do want to spend money, become a member of my channel. I'm trying to push that at the moment. It's only $1 a month, so I keep it cheaper than basically everyone else. I just want lots of people to do it really cheaply, because it doesn't take much from you out, but then if enough of you do it, it makes a big difference to me. And currently the US dollar is not doing the best in the old markets at the moment, and I live in the UK, so I get paid in dollars on YouTube and stuff, and I'm taking a big pay hit from the collapsing dollar, which isn't great. So any support you can have is more than welcome, but just keep enjoying Legacy, enjoying my content, and that's also something that brings me joy. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.